Texas legislative session when HCR 50, carried by Brandon Creighton, went through. You remember that state sovereignty bill? I swear to God that it is hot in August in Texas. The sun rises in the east and sets in the west. That ain't going to cut it. And swearing that the state of Texas is a sovereign state in this republic isn't going to cut it. We have got to have judges and law enforcement officials and legislators who will say that unconstitutional federal action is null and void and will be of no effect in this state. When the EPA tells the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality that they are going to withdraw our air permitting authority, what should we be saying to the EPA? That's right. That's right. Our local law enforcement ought to be at the front gate of every one of those production facilities that is being threatened and telling those EPA officials that they can leave or they will be arrested. They have no authority in the state. We have in office, I'm convinced, politicians who want nothing more than to get your vote in November. No. And want nothing more than to be reelected. So I suggest to you today that you begin to call them and put them in the hot seat. Because once that election is secured in November, your ability to influence their behavior has been dramatically diminished. Your understanding here today, your opportunity here today to visit with the brightest minds in the state of Texas studying this issue, I don't have all the answers, and I hope I never leave you with the opinion that I think that I do. I believe that iron sharpens iron and that wisdom comes from the minds of men. I hope that you will spend a lot of time in the breaks and after to network with those around you, exchange cards, get phone numbers, and get email addresses and figure out. In fact, we might ought to take an opportunity and say, you know, who here lives in Texas Senate District 1? There's only 31 of them, and begin to figure out where you're from, and y'all start to get together and put those guys on the spot. Because if you will say to them that we have to have bills that have teeth in them, bills that will truly stop Washington, D.C. from enforcing these onerous attempts at overregulation, then and only then do we begin to see the restoration of a sovereign state. The executive obviously is more than just the governor, and I have certainly made pretty clear some of my objections to the governor's leadership or lack thereof of our state, but it's not just the governor. We have a comptroller through whose office flows the fuel tax. Anybody like to see that kept in Texas? Yeah. Is there something in Article 1, Section 8 about a fuel tax? No. I didn't think that I had seen it there. Perhaps Texas should say that we will keep our fuel tax dollars in the state of Texas. Yeah. And the comptroller could do that. And the Attorney General could continue and should continue. Ken Emanuelson made the point that we ought not rely on the federal court, but when we do, we need people to argue before the federal court in a constitutional manner. And we need the AG's office doing that. But we must be discerning as individuals, as citizens of this state, to hold those elected officials accountable and determine whether what they are waving in front of us is a flag that has no more import than passing a resolution that says it's hot in Texas in August. And I think that, and we get excited about that. And we hold rallies and we cheer because we've gotten this state sovereignty resolution through and it does nothing. Don't let them off so easy. let's start to say, what would be the effect, sir? If I'm going to go out and work hard, we all have very limited resources. If we're going to work hard to get these things passed, what will be the effect?
Yes.
And if it doesn't repel Washington, if it doesn't restore our sovereignty, then we need to find another bill to support. And we need to find better teeth there. The executive branch clearly can begin to give some cover to local law enforcement, to counties, to cities, when they begin to stand against the federal government. I quoted from 1854 from Sherman Booth. I had an opportunity, and you may have heard me mention, to talk with the Attorney General's office about nullification and interposition and what the state could do. And they referred me to the idea that we have 150 years of case law that says the states can't stand up against the federal government. But I think if we did some hard work, if we do some legwork, we would find, even in the federal courts, some places to draw comfort. And many of you in this audience, I'm sure, will have heard of Sheriff Richard Mack from Arizona. If you'll pull that case, it's a 1997 U.S. Supreme Court case, you'll find Justice Scalia saying, "We've warned that this court has never sanctioned explicitly a federal command to the states to promulgate and enforce laws and regulations." Could somebody remind the EPA of that? See, that's 1990. You don't have to go back to 1854. You don't have to go back to before the U.S. Civil War. You can go back just to 1997 and quote Scalia, reminding us that this court has never sanctioned, ever. He goes on to say the federal government, we held, may not compel the states to enact or administer a federal regulatory program. You want to start listing those? No Child Left Behind, EPA, I mean, hello?